A couple of weeks ago, I ran a newsletter piece that was half of a problem-solving exercise, focusing on the problem exploration phase. We generated a redefinition, which was in what way might I guarantee sustaining the tight family culture through a period of rapid growth. And now I'm going to give you part two of the process that we ran there, which focused around the technique of Bionics. The first element of that technique is to break the problem or break the issue down into its component parts, and the key elements that we identified there in very abstract, generic terms, whether there are disparate elements to the solution, the fact there were different groups of people around the place that were relatively remote. And what we needed to do was to bind people together. We needed a focus as well. So the key words were disparate, remote, needing to bind and needing to focus. And what we then did was to have a look in nature and see if we could find examples where those various components have been pulled together in a satisfactory fashion, and to see what we could learn from those. Two models were identified. The first of those was religion. And one of the key things that came out there, the tool that was used to bind and focus people, seemed to be storytelling. The fact that there was always an underlying set of stories that were used to communicate the principles behind the religion and to align everyone, to keep everyone in shape, to keep everyone on the straight and narrow. So storytelling was the key feature there that we felt we picked up. The second model we looked at was, rather strangely, by contrast, penguin colonies. And the fact there is an annual trudge, if you like, across the frozen wastes to the annual breeding grounds. And the fact that all the penguins pull together on an annual basis and kind of come together, and everyone remembers, all the penguins remember that particular location to pull to, and it's obviously an annual event. We then stood back and said, well, what can we learn from those two elements if we pull them together? And we ended up concluding rather straightforwardly, actually, that one of the ways of keeping everyone bound and maintaining the family culture was to generate stories that will bind staff, to make sure there are a series of what you might call magic stories that everyone can tell and pass on to new recruits, tell people outside the organisation, that really contain the harmonising elements, the fundamental principles that underpin the business. And the other one was creating some sort of charismatic events that will be celebrated on an annual basis. You need some sort of event that pulls everyone together, where the anniversary forms a key part of the inner company psyche, if you like, perhaps linked to the storytelling. So you end up with an interesting challenge, maybe another part of the problem. It kind of feeds through to what are those stories and how do they relate to this particular charismatic event that will bind everyone. Interesting though, the problem set off being a very practical problem as expressed by the chief exec, wanting to bind everyone together through a process of change that was linked to the loss of a lease that was coming up in 2 years' time and the need to relocate. And we ended up looking at an anniversary event, a charismatic event that was bound together by stories. Interesting.